They said the truth won't survive beside the lies that maintain the decaying faces of display.
Hey everybody, what's up? It's Hold the Truth Hostage, where if the truth was so important, we wouldn't negotiate with lies. We would hold the truth hostage. Now, I haven't made a video in I think 2 weeks or so. Just been handling something, just taking my time. But, I think with this focus on the full-time ghosting, I think I gotta make this video. I made a video either over a year ago or over 2 years ago called the dating simulation. You know what I'm saying? The dating simulation. And I think what we gotta start doing and looking at is we gotta start with this full-time ghosting is the situational simulation. The situational simulation. And the reason I think this is important and why we have to simulate the situation is that in knowing the situations of the country you're at, the laws, the politics, you can better navigate the country. You can better navigate your life because you're running a situational simulation. I think a lot of what's going on with today's domestic politics in the West, the politics are basically telling men that, you don't really get any second chances. Second chances are not on the table. With what we've seen with the Me Too's and, the open demonization of, be it boys, young men, adult men, and so on. With what's going on, you can't really, you shouldn't really invest in providing an opportunity to your destruction to begin with. So I think a lot of men going forward, and this is why I moved the channel towards the full-time ghosting, is that, men are at the point where it's all about solutions. All we want to speak is solutions. We don't want to speak about problems and, potentially trying to trick our way out of the problems. Surviving the problems. We're not here for that. Surviving the problems, wiggling our way out of it. No, that's why I tell guys with the full-time ghosting, the approach isn't that you don't care. It's not about you don't care, because to say you don't care about something is focusing about not caring about it. It's kind of similar to when I would speak to some guys that said they were atheists. They were atheists. They would say, I don't believe in God and all this, but in truth, atheism is really about, focusing on not believing in God. It's kind of, in my opinion, a reverse of being, a believer in God, where a believer in God and religion is focused on believing in that faith. Atheism is the polar opposite of that, where they focus on not believing in religion and so on, but they're still focusing on religion, just not believing in it. I think with the way society is and how you should move is more agnostic. It's agnostic. what I mean by that is that, you're not believing in anything. It's not you don't believe, it's just that it has nothing to do with you. The way I look at it, how men gotta move forward is that you gotta move with the perspective that, what does it have to do with you? You know, for example, if they bring up marriage, if something's not an option for you domestically where you are, what does it have to do with you? It's not that you don't, it has nothing with your emotions or you caring. It's just, it's not an option on the table. You know what I'm saying? And I think the full-time ghosting perspective, that's how we got to look at life, is that, what is on the table and what does it have to do with us? You know what I'm saying? What does it have to do with us? What's placed on the domestic table of options when, it has nothing to do with us. These choices are not even an option. You know what I'm saying? They're not even an option for guys like us who are in a full-time ghosting where there are zero attachments, where the perspective is there are zero attachments, zero emotional attachments to prioritize your freedom, you know what I'm saying, your ability to maneuver and be free, because the way I look at it with how things are going on in the country is that the country is already given, the actions have already told you how you should be moving, with the Me Too cases, the open push to disrespect men, to tell men that you have to be vulnerable. You know what I'm saying? You have to be vulnerable and you have to put yourself in a situation where you benefit those that seek to be predatory towards you. With the narrative, the push of telling men that being a full-time straight male, FTS is wrong. You know what I'm saying? Being full-time straight is wrong. That's the narrative that's being pushed, and that you as a man need to be vulnerable to other men. Because what's happened is, and this is why I say you got to run the situational simulation, and you have to understand that this narrative that you got to blame women, it's women's fault, it's actually part of the plan and a distraction to have you look away from what's truly going on. What's truly going on and what's the truth of the matter. The truth of the matter is when you run the situational simulation of society, you will understand that the goal of your domestic politicians and so on, is to basically have men now mirror the voluntary opportunity of being vulnerable as they have the women. You see, all the laws that were structured and made to promote this single motherhood stuff, this whole narrative where women are only stronger by embracing the government and embracing corporate structure over having a man in their life. This whole narrative, as I was saying, the reason they have men, they want men to be as vulnerable as they have established with the women, with the legal system and the dismantling of the structure between the sexes, the roles each individual sex plays when it comes to the interaction between men and women. That's why the law was designed the way it was. The law is designed to where it has to strip the balance. It has to strip the balance between men and women so it benefits the government and the corporate structure above all. I mean, you gotta understand the voting system. Think about when you're voting for someone. You're really voting and inviting a stranger. You're voting and empowering a stranger. And how does it benefit strangers more? How do these strangers ensure that they get more votes, they get more support? Well, they have to break the fabric of stability between the men and the women. Because think about the politicians and the corporations. It doesn't matter what wrong and how right they act, because at the end of the day, the way the structure is designed, it's designed to empower strangers to begin with. People that do not qualify or people that are corrupt, they get a second opportunity. I mean, think about it. If you commit a crime, it goes on your record, and it might potentially, and it normally will, limit your potential opportunities. While if a politician commits a crime, there's still more opportunity. They still qualify to run in politics. Same as corporations, where if a corporate person is found to be stealing or, taking extreme actions in their corporate life, there's still opportunities for them to be hired through corporate. We've seen that with pyramid scheme people. We've seen that with many corporate people that have abused their position, and they have another job lined up for themselves. So what they've done is they've destabilized the women. And the thing is this, like I tell a lot of men, in here on my channel, hold the truth hostage, full-time ghosting. I've been saying this for over 2 years, over 3 years, is that, we can't blame the women. This is a man's world. This is a man's world. And if the women were to blame, then all women throughout the entire world would be behaving and acting as they are right here domestically, where we are. And what by domestics, I mean, if you're in the West, United States, Canada, UK, and so on, westernized countries, whatever, and Americanized countries, legally, how things are. So what a lot of men have to do is, when you run the situational simulation, is you're simulating mentally where you are in a situation, because you have to understand that they've already they've already won when it comes to dismantling the women. What I'm saying? They have everything structured around the women to where it benefits and creates an environment where they are vulnerable. What I'm saying? Have children without a father present, without marriage present, wedlock. What I'm saying? Basically, be in a situation where you're vulnerable and you will be dependent on the government and corporate structure. What I'm saying? Corporate structure, while you're you have no real stability at home. Your sole form of stability is the corporate structure and government. That's how it's set up. And a lot of men need to understand now, when it comes to making men vulnerable, it's different. It's a different approach to the women. The women is just changing the laws and applying the stability of a man, asking women to be men when it comes to how you create the laws. So it goes completely against their nature and destabilizes them. What I'm saying? You have the women thinking, and you promote that, yeah, you'll be empowered. You're empowered and you're powerful for destabilizing a man that you're involved with, and opening yourself to the government and government and corporations as your form of stability, which are nothing more than strangers that have a very, very pro-corruption when it comes to how they are dealt with. You know what I'm saying? The morals. There are no morals, when it comes to that level. So they've destabilized the women and pushed them away from the true stability that could be in their life, which is a stable man, a stable family structure. You know what I'm saying? Where everyone they know has someone they know and has a level of stability, mental fortitude, and most importantly, it's someone they know. It's not a stranger. Because if you look at the society we're in, you run the situational simulation, you'll understand that everything is designed to push and promote that you should trust strangers. You should put your whole life into a stranger's hand. I mean, look at YouTube with how many ads you're getting from strangers telling you that they qualify to lead you. They qualify to give you an opportunity, make you a millionaire and so on. And these strangers do not even tell you while pushing their products and their narrative, their qualifications. They're not telling you their qualifications. They're not telling you their certificates, their degrees, nothing. Everything's run on a perspective of, hey, look, I know. They don't even mention, look, I'm a stranger, but look, I can make you rich, I can make you wealthy, I can make you happy because I'm a stranger. You know what I'm saying? Trust the stranger. That's where we are in this society. Trust the stranger. And to get back to the men, like I've been telling guys, is we have this PTS, that's going on, part-time straight male. That's the narrative they've been pushing since the 2010s by telling men that, you being straight is where the whole toxic masculinity push. What a lot of men didn't notice and didn't look at is that this whole narrative of toxic masculinity, it originates from men being straight. You know what I mean? The problem and where this whole toxic perspective comes from is you being a straight male. That men being straight is toxic. That was the whole push. And as you saw where it escalated with the toxic masculinity, after that, you get a push on promoting, intentional promotion of declaring that children should suffer from body dysmorphia with the narrative and the push of, trans kids and so on, telling you that your children, which don't even know what's going on in the world, they're the most vulnerable. You know what I'm saying? They're the most vulnerable, that you should push and allow the narrative that they should be trans and they should suffer from body dysmorphia, that you should intentionally do physical harm to your children prior to them being adults. Because this narrative that's being pushed is incentivized, because if they can convince you to make your children suffer from body dysmorphia, they can promote that, then they'll have a longer term access to an adult that is damaged and troubled, that will invest in drugs, that will invest in surgeries and operations, because they are troubled and suffer from body dysmorphia after removing or trying to change their sex. You know what I'm saying? Trying to change their sex. Don't buy into this gender crap. You know what I'm saying? The gender crap. There are only three sexes. You're either a male, female, or damn, I forget the one when you're both a male and a female. I keep forgetting that word. But there's three sexes, whatever. But the goal is to convince you as a man, a woman, to basically sacrifice your children to the cause of the corporations and government. Because look at who they have promoting this trans kids narrative. They got celebrities, which are full adult celebrities, telling you, celebrities which have more money, telling you, the poor person, the average poor person, the middle class, that you must support and sacrifice your children to body dysmorphia and surgery, that your children know better. The reason they'd say your children know better, because they know your children are more vulnerable to absorbing the narrative of the corporate structure. You know what I'm saying? So you have celebrities openly telling you that you should have your children be their bodies be altered, and they should suffer body dysmorphia. This is another reason why Hollywood is pretty much, it's dead. It's dead. There's Hollywood has become nothing more. The entertainment structure in the Western society, Americanized society, is nothing more than destruction. And I forget the word. What's that word? Forget that damn word all the time. I forget the word, but basically, man, it can't be trusted. You know what I mean? It can't be supported, in all honesty, because the biggest scam of this whole save the trans kids narrative is that when's the last, they're so honed in on promoting that you should do this to your children, that you don't see these Hollywood people just throwing their children to the surgical chair and, changing their bodies. Of course, you see them sacrificing the children with how they dress them, dressing boys like girls, and just promoting this vulnerability, especially amongst the boys, where they're dressing them up like girls and so on, because it's all about promoting the cause that would make men vulnerable. Because the men, once they did toxic masculinity, like I've been telling guys for years, toxic masculinity is saying that and claiming that you, the man, are toxic. But to go deeper, on common sense level, it's that you as a straight male are toxic. And one thing society knows, unlike the women, the men, you have to manipulate them. You got to manipulate them heavy. It's not really laws, because if you try to manipulate men with laws, where it comes to, you're gonna force men to have sex changes and all that, it'll lead to a potential revolution, civil war, guerrilla warfare, and so on. So with the men, you have to approach it more on a mental game, and you have to approach it more on a strategical level, a strategical operation. So what they've done is that they've done this by enacting the laws on the women's part. What you do is you empower the women in the marriage so they can make the men bow down. Indirectly, you make the men bow down. That's why you see an opening of feminized men that are married. I've been telling guys, the rise of the feminized male, or as I call it, the pink-pilled man. But this is what's going on. And when you run the situational simulation, and you run this, what's the situation you're in, where you're at domestically? You run this, you see that, you have to avoid attaching yourself to the system. You have to maintain detachment. That The government and the politics and the corporations have basically told you that if you are a part of this system, this is how you must abide. These are the rules you must abide to, so they can claim you as a success and as someone they want to support. You have to support body dysmorphia to children. You have to run away and remove yourself from being a full-time straight male. You have to become part-time straight, or you have to basically become a rainbow rider. You have to go in the closet, have a portable closet. You have to sacrifice and compromise your sexuality as a straight male for you to benefit this society. That's why you see the schools openly, you've seen advertisement where rather than having a stable man who's a fireman, a businessman, or an author, a male of stability, they have that are drag queens reading to children. Men that could take advantage and physically take your children and these children, you know what I'm saying, and harm them. Because that's been the narrative. The narrative has been to normalize the mentally compromised man. The mentally compromised man into a situation where they can access the children of the stable and straight male, the full-time straight male. The goal is, and I got to do a video about this because I've talked about it on my last live stream, is that, a lot of men, a lot of people, a lot of men need to understand, the narrative and the push of this so-called population control is wrong. It's been wrong. The whole perspective of decreasing the population, it's wrong. It has been wrong since it begun. It's not about decreasing the population. It's about whether you're part of the required population, the minimum population requirement, or part of the surplus. Part of the surplus. If you're part of the surplus population, then you're not really needed. You're just a surplus, and the goal is to allow the mentally unstable men to have access to the surplus population of straight men's children. And you have this whole push. What is it? I'll do a reaction to it, but if I was you guys, I'd advise you to go to BetterHelp. Go to BetterHelp's website or YouTube account. They have a commercial now where the suggestion is that the majority of people need to go to therapy and have a mental check. That the majority, that the majority, almost all people suffer from mental illness and mental problems, because you should not be able to grow up in a stable situation in this society. That's what you'll hear from this ad. And I'll try to find it and share it and react to it eventually. But the suggestion that most people need mental help, most people need it, is basically claiming that it's normal for people to be mentally compromised. That's the narrative that's being pushed with that ad. So to me, a lot of men need to run the situational simulation. You have to simulate the situation you're going through in this society, and you'll arrive at the point where you realize that that to be compromised is what the corporate structure and the government structure requires of you. That this is the standard they want you to meet as a man, is that you have to compromise your stability. Because I've been telling guys, the way it worked and the way the laws are structured was always to have it in a situation where, as you can see with the women's situation, is that they are not allowed to be led by a man's being in a stable mindset, stable man, that they have to be in a structure where the male is destabilized. That's why you see this push of child support, this demonization of fathers and so on, men being deemed toxic, toxic, so it's all about destabilizing the women and having them prioritize destabilization. And as you can see, it's a success. Over 80% divorce rate, over 80% child support rate, men being put on child support. I think over 70% men potentially being on domestic violence cases for an argument. You know what I'm saying? So, and most importantly, over 100% of disrespecting the straight male. You know what I'm saying? Disrespecting the straight male. So this is the society you're in. And I've been telling guys with this full-time ghosting, it's not about caring. Like I started with the video. If you care or you don't care, guess what? You're still displaying a sign of inputting energy into focusing on the matter. You have to understand that this society is open with you, and it's been honest. A lot of guys will say, on other channels, the government's lying, this and that about the population. No, the government's openly telling you the population we want men and women that are basically promoting body dysmorphia to their children. The government and the corporations are always telling you what they want openly. Now more than ever. Their 2010s was all about establishing the no more limitations on what we want. We have to tell these men we want their children to be exposed to drag queens and, guys that are, transsexual, even though we know that the self-deletion rate, the last necktie rate on people that are in the drags and the trans community are extremely high, But another thing they don't provide information on is how many of those people do a double. They'll delete a person, then delete themselves. You know what I'm saying? And we've even seen where a person that's a tranny or drag queen, call of duty to school, and they didn't report it. They didn't report that person's sexuality when they call of duty to school. When they call of duty to school, they focus strictly on their actions. You see? They focus strictly on their actions, or they call of duty to school. They don't mention the sexuality because that doesn't go with the narrative they want, and it's not structured in a way where it would benefit them. You know what I'm saying? To focus on that sexuality when reporting the news, because how is that the prime focus, and how does it benefit their narrative? So what you have now, and what a lot of straight men need to understand, full-time straight males need to understand, especially with the full-time ghosting approach, is that you have to accept, you have to accept what the society is offering you. I'm not saying accept as in, you're gonna support it and so on. I'm not saying support. You have to accept what you've seen, the behavior. You can't look at society through an ideal lens, that your pursuit of an ideal, your idealism of what the society should be how you move. That one day it will become ideal. That's the fantasy. That's the fantasy of a man, is idealism. You know what I'm saying? Idealism is one of the prime fantasies that has led to the destruction of men. You know what I'm saying? You got to look at what the society's showing you and move accordingly. Move accordingly. And like I tell guys with this full-time ghosting, is that you're always prioritizing, your detachment. So you have to start predicting what's next. You got to look at the laws. Well, if they did this, they'll do this. They did this, they'll do this. You always have to look at things holistically, and you have to start compounding their ideals and their goals. You know what I'm saying? So you can predict the outcome and what's coming up next. What's their next move. You have to always be maneuvering and moving from a perspective of trying to predict what's next. What's next? You always got to run that simulation. Okay, they got this, they gonna do this. And you have to prepare yourself, and you got to live accordingly. You got to live with a lifestyle that prioritizes. The full-time ghosting prioritizes your ability to be mobile and your ability to be free above all. You know what I'm saying? And doing that will actually make you live below the standards that they want. You know what I'm saying? But that below the standards of what they want you to be. You know, like I've told guys on some streams, on some live streams, and I've told guys with the Casper Pill 2.0 and Casper Pill 3.0 is that, when you think about it, if marriage and starting a family is not an option, it's not an option for you. You know what I'm saying? It's not an option for you where you're living domestically with the laws and the structure of how things are. Then why would you live and pursue a lifestyle that resembles preparation for that? The full-time ghosting, especially in this gig economy, where you can actually rent homes, Airbnb a house, Airbnb a mansion. You can basically experience all the standards they want you to experience. You can experience being a homeowner by Airbnb in a home, whatever, because the way society has become, and with full-time ghosting, is that you're looking from a perspective of having no liabilities. You know what I'm saying? No liabilities. You know what I mean? It's full-time ghosting is avoiding liabilities. You know what I'm saying? And with what things are now, and you could see with the advertisement of how they keep telling you real estate, you can make money off real estate. That's what it's become now. If you're not seeking a house from a perspective of income to make money, you're doing it wrong. If your pursuit of being a homeowner is driven by starting a family, you know what I'm saying? Starting a family, just, you know what I mean? You're attached to the system. You're attached to the domestic system, and you're prioritizing liabilities. You're prioritizing liabilities over being completely without liabilities. You know what I'm saying? Because now, like I've been telling guys for over, it's probably over 4 years, I've been telling guys that the country now, when it comes to men, is all about making money. Making money is all it's about now. For men, it's not about family, starting a family, having a family. It's not about that at all. That is removed off the table. That's been off the table since 1969 with the no-fault divorce law. That's been off the table. And another video I gotta make is this whole they mean well. They never meant. You gotta remove that out of your mind. They never meant well. You know what I'm saying? Well, they meant when no fault started, they meant well. They had a good meaning behind. No, they did. They never did. They never did. Y'all gotta take that out of your minds. You gotta take this saying out of your mind that someone meant well. They mean well. They never meant well with what they're doing. You know what I'm saying? If they meant so well, they would run 10 years, they would run over 20 years of public, private, you know what I'm saying, public and private trials, conversations. They completely destabilize the relationship between men and women with no fault divorce. And you're gonna say they mean well, they meant well, they had a good idea. No, they didn't. They never did. They've never meant well with what they're doing at all. It's all about placing the corporate and government structure above the stability between men and women, finding stability between each other. They've never meant well. That's a saying, you know, full-time ghosting. You got to take this shit out of your mouth. You can't be saying this crap ever again. They mean well. They meant well. You know what I'm saying? When they did child support, they meant well. They meaned well. They did no fault divorce. They mean well. They meant well. No, they didn't. They did not. They never did. You know what I'm saying? If they never did, because if you know, why would the government, you know, interfere intentionally, try to take the role of a father and a mother? And they meant well by removing the power and from both people in the relationship. You know what I'm saying? The roles that benefited them, the security and protection of the children by having a father in the household. You know what I'm saying? A lot of guys that have been so warped by this system will tell you, well, you know, being a protector and a provider, it's all face value. You know, it's all about when the father's present. No, a child with a father that knows they have a father, you know what I'm saying, they walk differently. They know that option. Then the people around their neighborhood know that option, that, oh man, his father's in his life. You better leave this kid alone, because, you know, you mess with him, you mess with his father. You know what I'm saying? So it's not all face value. The very option of having a father around changes everything, because now people gotta deal with that kid's father. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of people that have been trained and warped by the propaganda that a father's value comes from face value, rather than, yo, just having a father in that kid's life changes everything, because now you have to deal with the consequences of that father. You know what I'm saying? Knowing you don't know what that father's willing to do. You know what I'm saying? You know, you don't know what that father's willing to do to honor and protect their child. And that's an option, you know. So this whole they meant well, take that out of your goddamn vocabulary, man. Take it out. They meant well. But when it started, they meant well. When they started with the idea, they've never meant well at all. You know what I'm saying? They never meant well. You know, most of the time when something that was done with good meaning behind it, it can't be ignored. You know what I'm saying? The American people during the independence were being overly taxed. They were being deemed a problem by their very existence as settlers. You know what I'm saying? That they should suffer. You know what I mean? That can't be ignored. That's absolute. You know? But the narrative that the government has to step in the middle and decide, you know, how a family should be structured, rather than focusing on avoiding the crimes, the criminality, and the abuse. It's just, well, the government should step in and decide what's right and wrong between a man and a woman and their whole family structure. You know what I'm saying? So it was never meant, there was never any good meaning behind it. You got to take that out of your vocabulary. So, you know, what I've been telling guys is you run the situational simulation. You run the situational simulation, and you look at the society you're in. You know, that this is why I say full-time ghosting. You know, it's far more it's universal. It's far more universal than the black pill, because the black pill has some requirements. It has requirements, laws, and freedoms have to be met for you to exist in a black pill perspective. But with this full-time ghosting, it's universal. Every man, wherever they are, can run a situational simulation of the society they're in, and start the full-time ghosting process, looking at it, their options, and what they can and can't do and have to do to place themselves in a situation where their mobility and their freedom is priority. Now, how men will get there is different. It depends on the the society you're in and the structure. You know what I'm saying? It's never the same. It won't be the same, as where you are nationally. There's a difference. But with full-time ghosting, you can still move like a ghost. You can pursue that zero attachments, zero liabilities. You know what I'm saying? That's how you gotta move. And like I've said with the Casper Pill 1.0 when I spoke about it, is that you have to understand that, yeah, man, you have to prioritize your freedom above all. That's really how men lead anyway. Men lead through freedom. You know what I mean? There ain't no fathers in history that led through being captive, that their direction and their path was based on being captives, and being constrained. It was through freedom. Here's what you can do, son. Here's how you move around the world. And like I've been telling guys with the first Casper Pill, is that you have to prioritize your freedom. Even if it means, for example, like I've been telling guys, is if you see a situation where you got to move out of your country and you got to take your family with you, and if said family doesn't want to, you go, man. You go, and because you've prioritized your freedom, you know what I'm saying, you go. You know what I mean? Being a man, depending on your age, you can somewhat always start a family. It depends on your resources. You know what I mean? But you can always start another family to a certain extent, because you got to prioritize your freedom, and through prioritizing your freedom, you can lead. You know what I'm saying? You can't lead from a point of wanting to be enslaved. You know what I'm saying? Who would qualify as a leader by coming up to another person and saying, here, we gotta become enslaved. We have to give up our freedom. You know what I'm saying? We gotta give up our rights. Does that sound like a leader? Not at all. So a lot is going on. But I'm saying you gotta run the situational simulation. And when you run that situational simulation, you will you'll be able to react to the demands of the society you're in, the demands of the society you're in accordingly, and you'll be able to full-time ghost, because the full-time ghosting, I said, it's a pursuit, constantly pursuing this. I'm not 100% there yet. I'm still working on it, the full-time ghosting. I'm still seeking it out, working towards it. That's the goal. Every moment, that's what I'm seeking, to become better and go further into full-time ghosting. Zero attachments, zero liabilities, zero emotion when it comes to making your decisions that would pertain to your freedom. Prioritizing your freedom above all, because your freedom is your manhood. Your freedom is your manhood, man. That's what a lot of people don't get. Your freedom is your manhood. You know what I'm saying? Once you've given up your freedom, you no longer have a manhood. It's gone. That's why, I don't want to stretch this out more, but that's why you see the fathers in the situation they are. They don't have freedom. You know what I mean? How can a father lead his children when he's literally a slave within his marriage, within his situation in a relationship. He's a slave. He can't lead it all. Once you've compromised your freedom, you cannot lead. And once you've compromised that by choice, you know what I mean? That's another thing with the full-time ghosting, is that you have to understand, as a full-time ghost, man, we zero attachments. You should not be feeling pity for other men that made their choice. You know what I'm saying? You shouldn't feel any pity for other men that made their choice. You know, a lot of these male YouTubers, Manosphere, whatever, male coaches and all this BS, all these other men, they'll speak to you from a perspective of babying other men, removing responsibility because they fear losing influence, losing support from other men. So they'll think and talk about male situations from a perspective of babying other men and sympathy. Oh man, I feel bad for my fellow man. No sympathy, man. You have to because if you sympathize with another man's decision, it means you actually are in a situation mentally where you'd rather deprive them of their freedom. Here's the thing, man. Another man is free to make their choices for their life. As long as it doesn't threaten your livelihood, your safety, and your protection and provisions, that man's free to make his choices. And if he's free to make his choices, he's free to live in the aftermath of those choices. A lot of the whole male space is built on other men coming to cry to another man. Oh, look what my wife did to me during a divorce. Look at what my children have become. And, all this sympathy and, crying BS. You know what I'm saying? No, man. Full-time ghosting, you know what I'm saying? That has nothing to do with you. Ghost, you got to understand the goal of the full-time ghost is ghost cannot be held back by the physical actions. You know what I'm saying? You throw a brick at a ghost, it's going right through him. So some other man's choices it has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with you at all. It wasn't your choice. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't your choice, so it has nothing to do with you. You know what I'm saying? It has nothing to do with you. I started with the video. Full-time ghosting, it's got nothing to do with feelings. You know what I'm saying? It's not about feeling a certain way. It's not about caring. It's all about looking at things and asking yourself, what does it have to do with you? A lot of men, you got to start adding this into your vocabulary and saying, what does it have to do with you? And when you think about it, well, nothing. It's got nothing to do with you. It wasn't your choice. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't your choice. You didn't make the choice. It's not your body. You're not this other man. You know what I'm saying? It's not your body. You didn't make these choices for this man. You know what I mean? So it's got nothing to do with you. This is what full-time ghosting is about. What choices have to do with you? You know what I'm saying? And if it wasn't a choice you made, it has nothing to do with you. You know what I'm saying? And there's no emotion there. There's no caring. There's no not caring. There's no feelings, nothing. Because it has nothing to do with you. You know what I mean? Practice that. Practice that when people ask you questions. They're like, yo, why aren't you married and all that? You'll be like, well, it's got nothing to do with me. It's not an option. It's not an option for me, and so it has nothing to do with me. It's not an option. It has nothing to do with me. You know what I'm saying? If you want to be truly honest with people, when they ask you a question, you're like, yeah, it got nothing to do with me. It's not an option. When something's not an option, is it an option for you to put your hands on the stove, to turn the fire all the way up and put your damn hands on the stove? No, it's not an option. So what does it have to do with you if someone else burned their hands? They put their hands over the stove. It's got nothing to do with you. You know what I'm saying? Now if it was something to do with you, it would have been, it burned your home or something like that. Burned where you lived or something like that. But we know the full-time ghosting is prioritizing your freedom. So even if a house burned, you know what I'm saying, you would just move on because you've placed your stuff in probably storage or somewhere else. You prioritize everything from a freedom first perspective. Freedom first, freedom first, zero attachments, zero liabilities. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? Zero attachment, zero liabilities, or no attachment, no liabilities. However you want to say it. I think it sounds better when you say zero. You know what I'm saying? So this is how you gotta live, man. You gotta start saying it's got nothing to do with me. You know what I mean? Full-time ghosting. It's got nothing to do with you. You know what I'm saying? When people ask you, don't you care? You don't have an option to care or not care. It's not an option because it has nothing to do with you. And it's not an option. So if something's not an option, then how can you care or not care? It's not an option at all. It's not an option for you. You know what I'm saying? And once you start looking at life more like this, like, it's not an option. It's not an option for me. It goes against my code of conduct, which is zero attachments, zero liabilities. You know what I'm saying? So it's got nothing to do with me. You know what I mean? Nothing. Once you start living this way and looking at things from that perspective, you'll be truly free, man. Truly free. So you have to start looking at life like that. Don't fall for that trap of don't you care. You know what I'm saying? Don't you care? Don't you feel? That's not an option. That's not an option for you. It's not an option on your code of conduct to care. You know what I'm saying? So you don't, you know what I mean? It's not about you don't care, you do care, you feel. It's not an option. It's not an option, man. You know what I'm saying? So, this is how you got to run the situational simulation. And don't fall for that BS. I think I gotta make a video on it. Don't fall for that BS that we're all, our lives is a simulation and we don't have control. Don't fall for that BS. That's just people that want you to give up your freedom. We're not living in a simulation. We are the ones running the simulation. You know what I'm saying? We mentally run the simulation. The simulation does not run us. Let me repeat that. We run the simulation. The simulation does not run us. You know what I'm saying? Don't fall for these scams, man. You have to understand that the way the westernized society is set up is everything set up from a perspective of a man giving up his freedom and his rights to his decisions in life. That's how everything's run now. That's how the system is being run, and that's the goal, to have you surrender your will. Surrender your will to make decisions for your own life. That's how things are set up. So you have to look at things and run the situational simulation. When you run a situational simulation, which is, I did the dating simulation. That's looking at just dating. That's a part-time perspective. The full-time ghosting is you're running a simulation on the entire society. And when you run the full simulation, the situational simulation of society, full simulation, whatever you want to call it, you realize the moves you can and can't make. the moves that fall under emotional attachment, idealism, you know what I'm saying, liabilities. You'll figure that out. But this has been hold the truth hostage, where if the truth was so important, we wouldn't negotiate with lies. We would hold the truth hostage. Full-time ghost.
They said the truth won't survive beside the lies that maintain the decaying faces of display.